Foot Clan, the future is coming. Make it brighter with Squarespace. Ladies and gentlemen, you know that if you have anything going on, if you have a blog, your work, if you're selling products, you need a website, and Squarespace makes it as easy as possible. And I'm talking about nothing to install, patch, or upgrade. Customize the look of a website. Head to squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use offer code Footballers to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.
Hey, this is David Johnson, running back of the Arizona Cardinals, and you're listening to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from Draft.com Studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
So happy to be here. So happy to be back once again.
I'm not sure how authentic that was. Jason Moore, what's your read on the tone of that intro?
You know,
very authentic.
The tone of the intro,
strange cadence.
Not authentic, but I know him, and I know he is, in fact, excited to be back on the air for what is one of my favorite shows every single season, one of the most important shows.
That's right. We are rating candy bars 1 through 10.
I love them.
This is the coaching. Sorry, no, that is not correct. We have yet to make that podcast, but it's coming. This is the coaching episode. We're going to cover all of the offseason coaching changes, including offensive coordinators, and we're going to do a little bit of reflecting on the fantasy implications of what the changes did last year. We'll look at the new year and how it might impact the players on your fantasy roster, the players you draft, and what you can expect and what these guys, Jason Moore and Mike the Fantasy Hitman Wright, are expecting to happen. I mean, we have some big-time hires this offseason, including the return of John Gruden to the NFL and what that might mean. And I know these guys have some strong opinions. I do as well. And I am very, very excited to talk about them on today's show. If you want to follow the show and everything that's going on, we are a year-round fantasy football podcast, and you can find us on Twitter at the FF Ballers, our community where you can join leagues with hardcore fantasy football players that listen to this show. You can go to jointhefoot.com and find those, the Foot Clan leagues, as well as an extra episode every week and a bunch of other perks. And then you can always subscribe on iTunes, leave us a review. We appreciate everybody that's done that this last week. And if you want a chance to win a signed Todd Gurley or Lev Bell jersey, we are giving one away. Well, we're giving both. We're giving both away. Not to the same person, but we're giving.
And maybe you're really lucky.
You could be the luckiest alive. But footclangiveaway.com, you can go, you can enter. It's free to enter, and we're going to give that away. At the end of March will be the official, we'll mail it out to you. So a signed Todd Gurley and a signed Lev Bell jersey. Also, a little bit of a teaser before I get into the quick question and the coaching news. A little bit of a teaser. We're going to talk a little bit of Dynasty on the next show.
Ooh.
Specifically, how to start a Dynasty League. It's one of our most frequently asked questions. Brooks, last week, he came in.
Brooks has been demanding.
On hands and knees,
Yep,
just begging.
Crawled in.
Yeah, please.
We set up a little doggy door, and he came in.
Yeah.
And he said, guys, the people are demanding a segment for how to start a Dynasty League, how to get involved.
So we said, all right.
A doggy door?
Well, technically, I guess it's a human door.
Yeah, because
it's just much smaller.
That's how we stay on top of our employees. From the moment they walk in, we make them walk through tiny doors.
Like Willy Wonka?
To keep their ego in check. It's very, Brooks and his ego. He can get out of hand.
It's ridiculous.
It's a protection against himself. His silence just affirms it now.
If you're a new listener and you don't know, Brooks is the, I would say, the least egotistical person I've ever met.
Outside of maybe Paul Giamatti.
Right. Well,
who is so incredibly modest.
Never seen both in the same place before, so have not yet confirmed that they are not the same person.
Hey, we have a new segment for the quick question today, so let's hop in.
The Wishing Well.
All right, let's toss a coin
into
the wishing well. What do you most want to see happen in free agency? What is your dream scenario? Toss the coin in, Mike.
Because this is the wishing well, I feel like I am allowed to be a little bit biased here. in a situation that I think helps out fantasy football as a whole, but my dynasty team may see a benefit from said wish, and that's I want Carlos Hyde to replace Frank Gore yet again.
Ooh.
And end up in Indianapolis just because the narrative of Carlos Hyde replacing Frank Gore on a second team is one of those things that just I find it appealing.
That would be very fun.
And Carlos Hyde is exactly the kind of running back that would have massive fantasy value if he goes in with his three-down skill set. I know the Marlon Mack truthers out there are very upset with what I have just said.
I'm very upset.
But I think Carlos Hyde would succeed in a major way for fantasy teams if that were to happen.
All right, Jason, grab your coin. Toss it in.
Well, I was gonna throw Isaiah Crowell onto the Patriots, but with this wishing well idea, the one that I actually want to see, like, a little bit more selfishly, because I have been a big believer in the backup capabilities of Trey Burton, or as Mike calls him, Trey Boo Boo.
Oh, have you accepted?
I have not fully accepted, but I know it's happening.
To be clear, as Mike calls him, Trey Boo Boo.
Yes. All right. So, but I want Trey Burton to
my best.
Replace Gronk. When Gronk retires here, and become the starting tight end for the New England Patriots.
You're putting chills into the.
I still do not believe Gronk retires.
Yeah, of course
at
not.
all.
Yeah, I don't believe that either.
There's just so many reports coming out saying, "Hey,
whatever.
It's true." What was it? The WW
He's
something.
been thinking about it a long time.
Was saying they're going to offer him a contract if he retires.
So you were going to go with Isaiah Crowell to the Patriots. It's funny because I was actually going to tease Carlos Hyde to the Patriots. But the only reason we're doing any of that is because the Patriots had literally the #1 rushing offensive line last year, according to Football Outsiders. You saw what Deion Lewis did in it, what Rex Burkhead did in it, and I didn't want to pick somebody to go there because the truth is, Deion Lewis going back there is probably the best thing for them. The truth is, the wishing well has Kirk Cousins' face emblazoned on it because I'd really love to see him go to Arizona, but I've come to accept the fact I doubt that's going to happen. So I'm going to go with a strange one. Maybe you wouldn't have expected it, but Sammy Watkins to San Francisco, okay, to team up with Jimmy G, and no, not just because I would get to call it Sam Francisco.
Oh, my goodness. Oh,
Mike is moved.
Oh, my goodness. I'm going to weep.
But listen, Sammy Watkins.
The dad joke to end all dad jokes.
To silence the dad joke crowd, which is tough to do.
Oh, I'm getting sweaty.
Sammy Watkins, the deep threat, the partner in crime for Jimmy G for many years in San Francisco, didn't have a high-volume role. Mike's still shaking his head.
It was unbelievable.
San Francisco.
That is unbelievable. That not only is the joke incredible, but you kept that under wraps. I mean, that would have just bubbled out of me.
You would have just been saying it earlier?
Yes.
All right, well, based on that, we may never go back to the wishing well. But there you go. Let's jump into the news.
News and notes from around the league.
See, when you say something like that around Jason, who's actually been in the comedy world with the Groundlings and in college, he doesn't even hear it. Something that bad, it just goes through him.
I enjoy Mike's reaction far more than the joke itself.
All right, guys, big news. Larry.
Oh, Larry.
Larry Fitzgerald has told the Cardinals coach Steve Wilks he will return for a 15th season in 2018 with the Cardinals. This is very exciting news, and as unabashed Cardinal fans, I wanted to express myself in the form of a Spanish radio call.
Well, it's our
by
show.
Gabriel Trujillo.
Larry Fitzgerald!
This one.
This is how I would be an announcer.
That is right.
That
One
was
more year of that.
That was essentially my reaction when I got the alert that he was coming back.
Yeah, the fantasy implications here are that Larry Fitzgerald is going to be a great value.
Exactly.
Year after year, we've had entire episodes dedicated to the undervalued guys who in
See the Mark Ingram of the wide receiver position now?
Yeah, the
always finishing in the top 10 and being disrespected?
Right. Whenever you can be consecutively disrespected draft-wise over and over and over, the Frank Gore effect, it's keep doing it. Keep drafting that guy who gets disrespected. And the truth is Larry Fitzgerald's coming back because he is very close to being the number 2 all-time in receiving yards and decently close in number 2 for receptions, which he needs 93 more receptions to take over the number 2 spot from Tony Gonzalez, which stands to reason that he's going to try to do that. I mean,
109 in 2015, 107 receptions in 2016, 109 last year.
Right. So 94 plus in 2018 for sure. They will force feed him the ball so long as he stays healthy to get that record.
All right. Let's talk about A.J. McCarron. He won his grievance against the Bengals. He will be a free agent.
It's unbelievable and also just be reminded there was a botched trade in the middle of the season between the Bengals and the Browns where the whispers in the bushes had the Browns sending a 2nd and a 3rd round pick to the Bengals for McCarron, who is now a free agent.
It's, embarrassing for the Bengals not to be able to finish that trade up and get compensation. But A.J. McCarron, he's the front runner to me to land on the Cleveland Browns with Hugh Jackson.
He'll be a starter at the beginning of next year, I believe.
Yeah. So that was big-time news.
I don't know that he's any good, but I think he will be a starter.
He's the comparison I keep hearing is the Mike Glennon comparison, even in money that he'll receive. The kind of deal that Mike Glennon got last year to come in and theoretically be the starter in Chicago before they drafted somebody. I don't think that the Browns are going to bring McCarron in and say, you have our future.
Right.
But competition, opportunity for them to bring McCarron in and compete. I mean, what else do you do?
If you're McCarron, I can't imagine you go sign with the Cleveland Browns, and not because just of the shambles that the franchise is in, but they have the number 1 and number 4 pick overall in the NFL draft. You think they're not going to take a quarterback? So I'm not.
Do you like him more for like the Jets or the Bills?
Yeah,
or
that works
like that?
as a stopgap quarterback. I'm just saying, if I'm A.J. McCarron, I'm not going somewhere where I know I'm going to be immediately replaced.
Supplanted, yeah.
So
money talks, baby.
Of course. And maybe that's his only option. Maybe that's the only contract he receives. But I would expect if multiple teams are interested that McCarron will end up somewhere else.
The Seahawks do not plan to re-sign free agent Eddie Lacy.
What?
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Disappointed, Jason.
No, I mean,
I'm
I will say
disappointed
this.
overall.
It is worth notating, in your own brain. A couple years ago, Eddie Lacy was as hot a first-round dynasty pick as possible. He was coming off back-to-back.
We're reflecting then? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, I mean,
And now what, Jason?
You draft Eddie Lacy in Dynasty. He's a great rookie. His sophomore season, just as good. You're talking double-digit touchdowns. He's 24 years old.
A cursory tale.
And then it's over. Eddie Lacy's career, fantasy-wise, is gone. He won't ever be relevant again. And this happens with running backs in a way that it does not happen with wide receivers, barring injury.
All right, the Eagles plan to pick up Nelson Aguilar's 5th-year option. This just makes sense, right? Torrey Smith,
good for him.
Heading out the door. We'll probably see Jeffrey, Aguilar, Mac Hollins.
Yeah, return of the Mac for sure.
Nice. Return of the Mac. All right.
The last piece of news here, update on
great.
Andy's article, The Case for Kamara, not out. It is currently not out, and I expect that it will be out soon before the season.
I have seen
September 1st is my current guess.
I have seen the rough draft.
Ooh.
And by rough draft,
can you pass that along, please?
Rough draft, I mean that there has been one of those word webs created.
Yeah.
And it's just a big cloud in the middle says Kamara, and then there's like an arrow that points and says touchdowns. That's where we are.
All around.
That's where the article is.
When it comes out, it's going to be great. I mean, you remember that?
I can't wait.
Remember that predictions article?
Yeah, September is going to be a great month.
Coaching Carousel.
Man, what goes up must come down.
Mike,
There's a thinly
something
veiled
about that drop I really just loved.
There's a musical reference in there that I'm sure you two don't know, but that's all right.
Probably the case. I still
Nailed it.
enjoyed it very much. All right, let's look back. Let's look back a little bit at the coaching changes that took place last year and their result. Brief reflection, and then we'll move to what took place this last offseason. I thought it was a couple things were pretty interesting. One, I looked back at Brooks put these 6 coaches that took over last year: Sean McVay, Doug Marrone, Sean McDermott, Anthony Lynn, Vance Joseph, Kyle Shanahan.
As head coaches.
Head coaches. Those are the 6 new head coaches last year. All but one improved on the previous coach's season, and some by a lot, obviously. Sean McVay, Doug Marrone, playoff teams after 3-13 and 4-12 years with Gus Bradley and Jeff Fisher. You did see improvement with Sean McDermott. Obviously, the Bills made the playoffs, replacing Rex Ryan and Anthony Lynn. And then you even had a big improvement for the Chargers, something we expected to see, a bounce back after Mike McCoy. And Kyle Shanahan.
I believe you mean Jimmy Garoppolo.
From 2-14 under Chip Kelly to 6-10. Now, Gary Kubiak was 9-7 last year, and Vance Joseph took over and went 5-11. And so he was the cheese that stood alone among that group. But I bring this up because coaching changes make a difference. In the NFL, the head coach position, obviously it makes a huge impact. You see long-term sustainable success from teams that can find a solution there. So that's what happened last year at the head coaching position and at the offensive coordinator position. Do you guys want to run back through these a little bit?
Sure, yeah.
I mean, we bring up the Kyle Shanahan, Steve Sarkisian one all the time, so why don't put some numbers to that?
Yeah, so Kyle Shanahan left the great 2016 Atlanta offense, and it wasn't just Kyle Shanahan. They also lost their quarterback coach, LaFleur, and all of a sudden they went from 8th in yards to 15th in yards. They went from
You mean second in yards?
Or yes,
first in points, second in yards, down to 15th in points, 8th in yards.
Yeah, I mean it was we all saw a regression coming because of kind of the outlier nature of 2016. But
they went self-imposed regression though.
Yeah, exactly.
By bringing in Sarkisian,
they did, and you see that with several offensive coordinators this past year. Now, sometimes like the Kyle Shanahan effect, when he goes to San Francisco, the team gets better. This is what we're going to take a look at today: is which changes that are being made do we expect to be positive and going to affect the offenses and the weapons of the fantasy output for the better, and which teams do we think maybe did not get the right guy or are purposely. Sometimes it's the clearest picture to say, okay, they have replaced their coaching regime. Look at Arizona, for example. They have replaced an offensive-minded coach with a defensive-minded coach who comes in with a solid defense, and he goes out and hires a don't screw it up offensive coordinator versus
he hired a coordinator who couldn't even make it through last year.
Jason will call him a middle-of-the-pass type of guy.
A middle-of-the-pass type
and we're talking
of guy.
about Mike McCoy.
Yeah, so and we'll talk specifically about each one of these, but that's an example of where you can take a look and say this is not a team trying to have the number one offense. They're not trying – I mean, everyone's trying to do better every play, but they want to succeed with defensive-minded football, and we'll take a look change by change to tell you which teams are going to improve.
Yeah, you saw Nathaniel Hackett, monstrous improvement last year on the offensive side in Jacksonville. It's one part coach, it's one part personnel, it's one part organizational signings and things like that. Let's go ahead and let's just jump into the 2018 changes. By the way, this year, there have only been 9 out of 32 teams that did not have a change at least the head coach, offensive coordinator, or defensive coordinator position. Just 9 of 32 teams.
That's a tough life as an NFL coach.
So you expect to bounce around, and some of these guys that we'll talk about, like Greg Olsen, have bounced around a little bit. So I'm so curious to hear what you guys have to say about these changes and what you expect them to do to these offensive, these fantasy pieces. So let's start in Arizona. Steve Wilks is the new head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. Now, Bruce Arians, for many years, innovative offensive mind, willing to throw the ball down the field.
No risk it, no biscuit, he would say.
Yeah, regardless of whether it was Carson Palmer or Drew Stanton. It didn't – what, were you going to add another name?
I was going to put in Ryan Lindley.
Yeah, so what does this mean? You bring in Steve Wilkes, last year the defensive coordinator of the Carolina Panthers. Great defensive coordinator by the numbers last year. Third against the pass in terms of – or I'm sorry, against the rush. Against the run, I apologize, against the run. In terms of yards given up, but he's a defensive-minded coach, as you said.
No,
so you expect Arizona, their talent right now is on the defensive side of the ball.
For a team, for the franchise of the Cardinals, this was, I thought, a good hire. They don't have a quarterback on the roster. What you do have is a top-rated defense for the past few years. Keep that going with the defensive coach. That's why the hiring of Mike McCoy is so dissatisfying. That they're going to have to – they're likely going to groom a rookie or maybe one of these older stopgap quarterbacks. But regardless of that, there will be a rookie that has to get groomed for Arizona. And Mike McCoy, he had success when he had a Hall of Fame quarterback. We've seen Hall of Fame quarterbacks make a lot of poor coaches look great.
He also had a pretty good year 1 year as the head coach under with Phillip Rivers, another possible Hall of Fame quarterback.
And he had in 2011 he had the #1 rushing offense and 31st in passing. So I mean he at least seems like he tries to use the weapons that he has available to him, but it doesn't inspire me to really like the Arizona offense. Larry's still going to be undervalued, and David Johnson is David Johnson. But other than that,
well, that's what people want to know. David Johnson, are you going to see the same David Johnson workload-wise? Because Bruce Arians was unabashed in his willingness to give the ball to David Johnson as much as possible.
I think we will. I think we'll see the same workload, but 16 rushing touchdowns. Can he come anywhere close to that? It wouldn't shock me to see 8 rushing touchdowns. But David Johnson will still be safe because he's one of the best pass-catching running backs in the league. But it's a very disappointing hire for me.
Yeah, I would agree with nearly all of that. I mean, you saw Noshawn Moreno with McVay get a large workload once, and you do have
McCoy,
yes, with McCoy, and so you do have a history of that. But you've got the Arizona Cardinals. 2015, they were second in the league in points scored. 2016, that's the great David Johnson year. They were 6th in points scored. This past season, 25th, and that in the 20s, maybe the teens is kind of where this offensive coordinator likes to live. That's unless you've got Peyton Manning. So I do expect that there is going to be a little bit of hardship for David Johnson scoring as many touchdowns as he did in 2016. Before we get to the next team, I definitely want to thank today's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is, I mean, I get asked all the time because of my background. We used to run a different tech company, and people are always asking about tech and websites and where should I go? Who should I hire? Listen, Squarespace is where you should go, and you can do it yourself. We have proven to ourselves that when we build things ourselves and we don't outsource to other people, we're able to have more control, and Squarespace has these beautiful templates. There's never any patching or upgrading or installing of stuff. It's all easy. It's all mobile ready right out of the box. It's all designed by really professional designers. You've got your idea, or you've got your thoughts, or even just a blog, or maybe you want to sell products. Whatever it is, you could do it on Squarespace. So you could head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and hey, when you're ready to launch, use the offer code FOOTBALLERS to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That's squarespace.com. Offer code is FOOTBALLERS.
Also, we've been getting that love on Twitter from some of the World of Warships fans out there, and we want to thank them. We want to thank World of Warships for sponsoring the podcast. And if you are looking for more ways to engage in a little friendly competition, everybody's got a phone, and you have to try captaining some of the greatest warships of World War II in World of Warships, the free-to-play historical online combat game from Wargaming. Look, endless hours of strategy, tactical gameplay, pulse-pounding naval combat. It's a balance, right, between action and strategy, kind of like sports. And I know we can all get excited about that. And right now you can download World of Warships for free at commandwarships.com to begin your naval adventure. Make sure you enter the code Footballers 18
All caps.
in all caps. None of them lowercase.
Well, I mean, all caps so you can be a captain.
That's right. So you can download, and then you get some bonus stuff if you use that code, courtesy of the Fantasy Footballers, including a premium ship, pile of in-game currency to start your adventure. Download World of Warships today at commandwarships.com and start playing right now. All right, let's talk about Matt Nagy. Because I can already hear it. The hype train. Apologies to those of you driving. We tried to turn it down a little bit today. There is not a train barreling down on you.
Up,
Yeah.
but
You actually did. And look, there's no train barreling down on you on the road, but the hype train is alive and active when it comes to Matt Nagy. And you're going to hear all of the comparisons because we saw last year the impact that one big change can make, not only on a team's record going from 4-12 under Jeff Fisher to 11-5 under Sean McVay, but on a forlorn quarterback, a potential bust. That was the label for Jared Goff. Now you don't really have that label under Mitch Trubisky. He didn't throw the ball enough to even to show you bust level performances, but he didn't have an amazing year. But this was an antiquated offense, and now you bring in Matt Nagy, the offensive coordinator for Kansas City, and you're going to hear the Goff to Trubisky comparisons. You're going to wonder what this means for Jordan Howard, Tariq Cohen, whomever they find in free agency. I expect them to at least make one splash wide receiver signing. Mike, let's start with you. Matt Nagy, what's your excitement level?
Love it. Hopefully Trubisky can show something in this upcoming year. But Matt Nagy is from the Andy Reid coaching tree. We've seen many success stories come from that coaching tree, and Nagy was actually allowed to call plays from under Andy Reid as the offensive coordinator. And in his 6 games calling plays, the Chiefs averaged 27 points, 275 passing yards, 122 rushing yards. The previous 6 games before Nagy took over, they were averaging just 76 rushing yards a game. Nagy came in, things really came alive. That's when the Kareem Hunt owners became pleased again that they had held on to Kareem and he had that sensational playoff run. So I believe in Matt Nagy. I like this hire. Jordan Howard has been an absolute beast, and now if they can get a functioning offense that is not just Jordan Howard surrounding him and he has more of an opportunity to get some carries, to get some touchdowns, I like this a lot for the Chicago Bears.
I think a lot of – sorry, Jason. I was just going to say Jordan Howard went from 252 carries in 2016 to 276 carries last year.
Didn't feel like it.
That's a lot.
Some of those touchdowns
ran for
were
200 fewer yards.
A little bit missing. Yeah, I mean, when you have the coaching tree that Andy Reid has, you always respect someone coming from that. But then you have Andy Reid going out of his way to say that he believes that he is the most qualified head coaching candidate he has ever seen come from his house. Right. Yeah, that says, look, this guy
They were roommates.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I really like it. My biggest worry was the offensive coordinator hire, which is Mark Helfrich. He was the head coach for Oregon and had a great offense there, but he has no NFL experience. He was a Fox analyst in 2017, so he's kind of out of the coaching sphere for a year. But it's official that Matt Nagy is going to be calling the plays. So I actually like kind of this college schemer coming in, helping with game plans, helping assist, but then giving the play calling duties to the head coach who is an offensive-minded guy. It reminds you again of that Los Angeles Rams situation we saw this last year. Very similar stuff happened. So I think that that will help Helfrich ease into the NFL. I'm actually excited to see what the schemes will be. I don't think they're going to go spread, but it'll be a fun team. I give this an 8 out of 10 on the coaching upgrade.
Very nice.
An A out of 10?
Yes, an A out of 10.
Matt Patricia, the new hire. Brooks put in my show doc, formerly known as Gimli.
No, currently.
And my axe. Right now it's like Gimlet.
Why?
It just as the hair grows back out, it'll become Gimli
What a
again.
disappointment that was. But Matt Patricia, I'll try to get behind this hire. Look, he was the defensive coordinator for New England since 2012. Tons of great finishes in that span, especially when it comes to bend, don't break type of defense. Look, they had problems last year in terms of giving up yards, but points, 5th in the league on the defensive side. But we're not focused on the defensive side here. We're focused on how this will impact the Detroit Lions offensive pieces. And the truth is, not that much, I don't think, because you have Jim Bob Cooter that right now is going to stay in that role. The biggest problem that Detroit has is running the football and whether they can find somebody that can do that. And I don't think Matt Patricia is going to work himself into that equation other than personnel decisions. So they need a running back through free agency or the draft, but I don't think you're going to see a lot of anything different from Mr. Matthew Stafford.
I agree. I like it. I think Matt Patricia has earned his way to be a head coach, and if he can improve the defense for Detroit, I think that only helps the offense. Look what happened with Jacksonville this past year. Their defense became elite, and then all of a sudden their offense is actually functional as part of a byproduct of that. So I like the move for the Lions.
Yeah, it doesn't really touch fantasy much because it's more on the defense, and there's very few, over the last 5 years, very few situations where a new head coach comes in and keeps the offensive coordinator intact. So you can't really extrapolate too much out of the data. It hasn't always worked out well, but this is the same exact offense, same players, same personnel. I'm absolutely confident with Detroit going forward.
All right, Indianapolis. The Chuck Pagano era is over.
Phew.
Frank Reich.
Josh McDaniel era is over.
Yeah, Frank Reich is taking over as the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. He was the offensive coordinator for Philadelphia last season when they had obviously a banner year on offense. Chuck Pagano represented everything that Jeff Fisher, John Fox, that type of coach represented, which was just not a lot of creativity. You can't blame him for losing Andrew Luck. That makes you a much better-looking coach when you have that kind of a quarterback. But what is your thought about Frank Reich, the hire to Indianapolis, the impact on Luck, Hilton, and whether this offense can become what it used to be, which is something you enjoyed watching and you had plenty of fantasy points falling out of the sky from?
I really like Reich quite a bit. Once again, he's expected to be the guy calling plays. Now, he did not call the plays last year in Philadelphia, so this will be his first time calling plays as an NFL head coach. But he proved himself last year. If you look at his past, he's gone to a spot, and it's taken him 2 years to get his offense completely implemented. But each time, that second year was great. So I don't know if they get off to a slow start this year, especially with Andrew Luck. How soon is he back? I'm a little hesitant to just say, hey, this is great, but I do like Reich. I think long-term it'll be great. And the truth is, and we said this a couple episodes ago, Frank Reich will be as good as Andrew Luck is healthy. And, it's just not fair, but It's true.
There's a lot of other needs there on that team. And you're in a tough division, too. With Andrew Luck back, do you see them ahead of a Deshaun Watson-led Texans? Do you see them ahead of a defending, champion Jacksonville Jaguars? Do you see them ahead of Tennessee with their coaching changes in the way that they played last year?
No.
That's where that's why I'm kind of with Jason, where between Andrew Luck coming back from the health, instability on the offensive line, in the running back position, on defense, it could be a tough year record-wise, I think, for Reich.
Yeah, it certainly could. You have I'm just okay with it. He's kind of led some offenses middle of the pack aside from last year, which was a monster season. He was the OC for the Chargers, and he saw Phillip Rivers lead the league in completions and attempts in 2015. Granted, the team was 4-12 and frequently trailing, so I'm not going to overread into those statistics.
Yeah, I just kind of like the guy as a as a man. Seems very calm, cool, collected, even keel. Some great backstory on him, even going back to when he was a player. So I think it'll be slow starting this year. I do, but long term, I think he could be a very good coach for Indianapolis.
All right, Pat Shurmur, the new head coach of the New York Giants with new offensive coordinator Mike Shula of previous Carolina Panther fame, now fired. Long term, offensive coordinator Mike Shula in Tampa and then Carolina had the monster year in 2015 where they were #1 in the league in points, but every other year from Mike Shula, his offenses were pretty much in the bottom half of the league. What do you think of these two hires? Pat Shurmur obviously had the stint as a head coach in Cleveland, didn't really have an opportunity after that. But what do you think about this?
I like the Pat Shurmur.
Is this
hire.
more liking Pat Shurmur or liking the fact that Ben McAdoo's not there and we get a refresh?
Maybe that as well, but just he was part of a very triumphant turnaround for the Minnesota Vikings. I mean, they were close to top 10 in both rushing and passing. An overall great team. He was the OC for Chip Kelly. I mean, I like the innovative play calling that I've seen so far for Pat Shurmur. So getting Odell Beckham in there and adding some other talent at the wide receiver position, I think that it's a pretty exciting hire, and mostly because you have an offensive mind heading up the New York Giants. So I really like it.
Yeah, I do too, and I'm going to say something that I think will surprise a lot of people listening, and you two sitting here as well. I love the hire of Mike Shula. The more that I looked into this, I love the hire of Mike Shula, and here's why. I saw this study. I wish I remember where I saw it. I could give credit, but there was a study done on Mike Shula saying that great play design, very poor play calling, and so they went and they looked at all of the first 15 plays of every game. Basically, those scripted. Most teams come in,
right.
You script those first couple plays, and then after that, taking a look at how the second half play calling and situational play calling. And the difference between where he was a great play designer but a terrible situational play caller, those are two completely different skill sets.
I agree.
But he had to
Shurmur's calling plays.
Exactly.
I should say it. Shurmur's
calling the plays. You have an offensive-minded coach who now gets an offensive designer for these plays. Previously, for the Panthers, you had a defensive-minded head coach, and Mike Shula had to do kind of all the offense, and I don't think that's his gig. I would not like Mike Shula to be hired as an offensive coordinator who has to call the plays again.
Okay.
We saw that fizzle out, but I think this is a really smart hire by Pat Shurmur. I'm excited to see what the Giants can do.
Very interesting. Giants fans listening right now, they are hooting and hollering. They're very excited about that take, Jason.
Sweet.
And when you say that I'm going to say something that you guys aren't going to expect, literally the entire gamut of the human language could come out of your mouth. So I was on pins and needles.
Most parents just covered their children's ears. Wait, guys,
including your wife. Your wife does
exactly.
that at home. Kids, I'm going to tell you something that's going to blow your mind.
My wife doesn't listen to this show.
All right. All right, let's get into a highly contested debate.
Sweet.
Or not. Let's talk about John Gruden. Jack Del Rio, whom I still adore. He just wasn't good enough, Mike. He was no Monday Night Football broadcaster. And John Gruden has been hired as the head coach of the Oakland Raiders, has not coached an NFL team since 2008. When I was in my 20s. And here we are. Long record for John Gruden in the NFL. And I think there are a lot of things we can talk about. Fundamentally, as a fantasy owner, you're looking for the maturity and fantasy value of Derek Carr, whomever is the running back there, which we don't know if it's going to be Marshawn Lynch. We don't know if it's going to be Jalen Richard or a rookie. And then you look at Amari Cooper, Michael Crabtree. Things seem, rumor mill, to be bending back towards Michael Crabtree not leaving.
I appreciate that, Gruden. Thank you.
Yeah, your dynasty team appreciates that because Crabtree is better there than anywhere else. So, what's your take? Give me the John Gruden take. Mike, just looking at you, It's like you had a bad piece of meat.
It's just difficult when there are every year there are new minds entering the football space, people innovating, and the NFL just continues to cherish and treasure the days of old when John Gruden won a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He finished with a record of 57-55. So this is 55. Sorry, but he didn't just go out on top with a man who has a career win percentage of 800. He won with defense.
Right.
His offenses in Tampa Bay were bleh. And you had 1 year where he had the number 10 offense. The other 6 years averaged out 21. That's not exciting for fantasy football. And the fact that he has brought in Greg Olsen. How does Greg Olsen keep getting a job?
Have a job? I genuinely believe that part of this has to be the success of Hall of Fame tight end Greg Olsen. And people think they're getting someone with great name recognition because Greg Olsen is
with an O.
Greg Olsen is bad. He's already been the offensive coordinator for 5 different NFL teams. 15% of the league have had him as their offensive coordinator, and you want to know where he's been good? Nowhere. He has stunk. 3 years ago, guess where he was the offensive coordinator? Oakland with Derek Carr. Granted, his rookie year, but we've already seen this. I mean, look at this. A couple years
Rotten
ago,
Tomatoes score on this
Rotten
movie?
Tomatoes scores 1%, and I give it 1% because of Hall of Fame tight end Greg Olsen. Otherwise, it would be a 0. When he was there 3 years ago, they finished 32nd, in yards, 31st in points, 32nd in rushing attempts, 32nd in rushing yards, 32nd in rushing touchdowns. At least they were 4th in passing attempts, but you would never know that because they were 26th in passing yards. I mean, Greg Olsen is not a good offensive coordinator. So I do worry here because we saw Gruden with Tampa not lead good offenses because he had a great defense, but with Rich Gannon and Oakland, he did have great offenses. I don't think
you mean back when I graduated high school.
I don't think Derek Carr, forgive me, Oakland fans, I don't think he's Rich Gannon. I think Carr might be more akin to, the Red Rifle.
Send in the car.
To an Andy Dalton level guy, despite the fact that he was Pro Bowl this past season, which is mind-blowing.
Which one?
Derek Carr.
This is why I think Kirk Cousins wants to go to the AFC, by the way. Because Derek Carr was a Pro Bowler. So you get to compete with Big Ben and Brady.
I hope that the Oakland Raiders are great because I actually like Gruden. I want him to come in after these years off as an innovator. I want to see some cool new designs. He has the mind for it. He has the capabilities for it. I hope that happens. I don't think that's going to happen.
Do we have any modern-day example of the large coaching gap and then the return with success?
I don't think so. No.
I mean, Mike Shanahan came back to Washington. Oof. And I don't remember his records there. It wasn't great.
The success part was missing.
It was okay.
You have a lot of these cases where a coach was fired previously and came back and then was good, right? But they didn't come back with the lore. Like Bill Belichick, Tony Dungy, Tom Coughlin, Pete Carroll. Those were all head coaches that were fired at one point in time and then came back. But they weren't like esteemed, Super Bowl champs that then came back and dominated. Although I'm going to give Tom Coughlin a little credit for what he did in Jacksonville this year.
Okay.
But not on the sideline. So,
did Jacksonville's offense get better this year?
Yeah, it did.
It did. You want to know who their offensive coordinator was the year before? Greg Olsen.
Maybe he signed a contract with the NFL, and they just have to distribute him among teams.
Yeah. I am currently researching who his agent is.
Yeah,
I want him.
Because I'm signing on right now. I don't care if it's a 50-50 split. That guy's going to get me paid.
Yeah, Greg Olsen was the offensive coordinator in Tampa with Gruden. So there's that connection here. But those are, again, the years where
the good old days.
They were defensive-minded, defensive-led. I mean, I brought this stat up to Andy. He wasn't that impressed. I thought it was crazy. But he brought up a good point. They were a defensive-focused team. But his last 7 years with Tampa, Gruden, 7 consecutive years, the better part of a decade, not one time did they finish in the top half for points scored in the league.
They did win a
Just
Super Bowl, though,
top
right?
half. Yes, they did. Defense.
Okay. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. It's going to be very interesting. I'm happy he's coaching. I'm
Me too.
happy for the story, the narrative, the thread through the NFL season, getting to watch John Gruden on the sideline. He should put on – whenever he's on Monday Night Football as the head coach, he should also commentate the game. He should do both from the sideline.
I still want the quarterback camp, whatever he does.
Oh, you want him to do that?
Spider 2 white banana.
I love John Gruden. I mean, I know a
What
lot
do
of
we got
people
here?
don't like
This
him.
is a foot what? A foot
Ball. Good.
You're the
like
quarter
him.
what? Quarterback. All right, Mike Vrabel is the new head coach of the Tennessee Titans. It's a great follow-up to Oakland because in some ways these are the polar opposite hires.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that the best hire isn't somewhere in between or maybe slightly less green than Mike Vrabel, but he is the new head coach of the Tennessee Titans. Mike Mularkey, despite the playoff appearance, see you later. Greener pastures with Mike Vrabel.
Mm-hmm.
Was the defensive coordinator for Houston last year. Wasn't real good.
Yeah,
Maybe they saw
lost
those.
some
Maybe they
pieces.
saw those numbers and said, "You know what? You'd be a better head coach. We'll put you responsible for not the defense and the offense." I'm kind of confused by the hire because I think most people are really, really excited, and maybe they're more excited about Matt LaFleur,
I am excited for Matt LaFleur. That's the
the
best
new
thing.
offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans.
The best thing that Vrabel has done is brought in Matt LaFleur. If you're not aware of who he is, he was the Rams offensive coordinator. So you may think, well, that's kind of strange that he was the Rams OC and he just made a completely lateral move to be the Titans OC. But that's because he was in the shadow of Sean McVay. He wasn't calling plays because that's Sean McVay's team and their offense. So it's actually kind of a step up in the career of LaFleur. But coming from the McVay coaching tree, I love it. We've seen Sean McVay's offense be incredibly successful now in 2 different spots, in Washington with Kirk Cousins and in L.A. with Jared Goff. Matt LaFleur was the quarterback coach in Atlanta from 2015 to 2016. He was under consideration to be the OC for Atlanta. When Kyle Shanahan left, they went a different direction. So I am very excited to see what Matt LaFleur can do if he brings over Sean McVay's system with Mariota, get Mariota out of the doldrums, the garbage of last year.
Yeah, and this is I'm not buying into the Matt Nagy Chicago narrative. I'm buying into the Matt LaFleur Titans narrative.
All right.
Where you have an established quarterback who has played at an elite level on a playoff team with weapons like Corey Davis, and now you bring in better play calling and somebody that can shape the decision-making process for Marcus Mariota. This is one of the few moves that makes me literally move Mariota up my rankings.
Oh, certainly.
Fair.
I mean, that's what you care about here on this show.
Yeah, Matt LaFleur, or as I like to call him, Peter LaFleur, from Dodgeball. I think that, he's
Call
been a
him Pepe
quarterback's
Le Pew.
coach. He comes in and, has an opportunity with a lot of tools. The only thing we haven't seen out of him yet is play calling. But I can't imagine it's going to be much worse than it was last year in Tennessee. So this is an arrow pointing up when you're talking fantasy. Weapons in Tennessee, I like them to outperform the 2017 numbers in 2018.
It gives you some hope. As a
Yes.
fantasy owner, you want to hope for Corey Davis. You want to hope for Derrick Henry and whomever else is in that backfield. If you just came back with Mularkey, you would get the same. You would get more of the same.
LaFleur and DiFilippo were the 2 guys that I was really curious where those 2 guys were going, and they both landed offensive coordinator roles. We'll get to DiFilippo in a little bit.
All right, yeah, we're going to jump right into offensive coordinators. Those were the 7 head coaches that changed. Like I said, last year I believe it was 6. And this year we've got some offensive coordinator changes in Buffalo. This one's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Brian DeBoll.
Who?
Rick
Yeah.
Dennison was fired. And here we have the offensive coordinator for the University of Alabama coming into Buffalo to try to revamp and improve an offense that 2 years ago was 10th in the league in points under Tyrod Taylor. Last year was struggling.
Yes, it being 10th a team led to being in top 10 in points is something that Brian DeBall has never done. In fact, his teams are generally in the low 20s when it comes to offensive yardage. The only thing that is somewhat redeeming here for fantasy owners is he does run the ball. He's been in the top 6. He's been an OC 4 years, and he was in the top 6 for rushing attempts 3 of 4 years. So Shady McCoy will still be fed. Do not have concerns about that.
Good.
You would hope that they get McCoy back into running out of the shotgun after refusing to do it last year. Yeah, but overall, this is
one of those hires.
Another uninspiring hire.
Yeah, I mean, this is a hire. Again, this isn't for fantasy football. This is for a defensive-minded head coach
Everything's
who's wanting
for fantasy
to
football, Jason.
I know. Who's wanting to run the ball and win with defense. So, yeah, I mean, this is an arrow pointing down situation where I don't look at the Buffalo weapons and think, hey, maybe Kelvin Benjamin will be a great value.
Yeah,
and
we
they'll
don't
get
even
a lot
know their
out of
quarterback.
him. Exactly. So right now, yeah, this is uninspiring for fantasy purposes. Maybe he's exactly what Buffalo needs to win games with the players they have.
What do we make of Norv Turner anymore, guys? Carolina, the new offensive coordinator is Norv Turner. Mike Shula fired. He had last quit the Vikings offensive coordinator job in 2016. I remember all the preseason, Norv Turner, hype train. Every tight end he has is going to be the next Antonio Gates from the great San Diego days. Are you excited about this?
No.
Are you shrugging this one off? I mean, what are you really hoping for here?
I think it's a good move for Carolina. We just talked about Mike Shula a little bit ago, the former offensive coordinator. I think he struggled with having to call plays. Norv Turner is a good offensive coordinator that can call the plays, design the plays, do the whole thing. Do I think he's the guy that's going to come in here and turn Carolina around and be a top 5 offense? No. But I do think he tailors his offense to his players. He is a very capable offensive coordinator, a very capable play caller. He's a little old school.
He's a little old.
He is definitely that.
He's older than Jeff Fisher, Chuck Pagano, Bruce Arians, or John Fox.
And when you look at his
65
coaching history,
65 Social Security. Yeah,
it's
he's double dipping, man. ARP.
Oh yeah.
If you don't know Norv Turner, you don't know ARP.
But I think for Carolina, for their team that is, a defensive-minded but has a lot of weapons on offense, he's come out, he said he wants to design runs for Cam Newton and, utilize that, which I think is what you need to do. So I like it. I think, if you have to compare, when I'm just trying to say, do I think, the offense as a whole is going to be better, worse, or the same as last season, I lean slightly better.
Okay. All right. I want to see Christian McCaffrey take a next step.
Yeah, I can hear that.
Todd Haley, moving in division. Moving on down. From
that one got an audible laugh from Brooks.
We got Brooks out loud. Wow.
He hopped on that fire pole and he went straight to Cleveland.
I'm sure he wanted to stay in the division and try to pay it back to Pittsburgh.
I'll get you, Pittsburgh.
Good luck. Look, Todd Haley's an interesting case because he's now look, it's a good hire for Cleveland, no doubt about it.
It is.
Haley had great success in Arizona. He had great success in Pittsburgh, and his offense is yardage-wise. I mean, 2014, 15, 16, 17, all top 10. 3 of the 4 years are the top 3 in yardage. I mean, he butts heads with players. I can think back to the Dwayne Bowe days. I can think back to even Larry Fitzgerald, who, much more mature than Dwayne Bowe, eventually learned from Haley and became a better player. Dwayne Bowe was driven out of the league by him. So it takes a certain person, I think, to work well with Haley. And honestly, I think it doesn't hurt that they'll have a young quarterback there. Because a young quarterback, there's less of the I do it my way, you do it your way situation that you have and maybe developed with Big Ben and Todd Haley. Despite their success, there was still that butting of heads. So I think it's a great hire for Cleveland. Ultimately, you want to have some confidence in the scheme that's taking place, whomever the quarterback is. You've got Josh Gordon, Corey Coleman, Duke Johnson, and
they have
company.
Great pieces.
They do.
Great skill players there.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is the arrow is pointing way up on the offensive options for Cleveland because he's going to come in, and whether the players like him or not, and whether the scheme is difficult or not, he's going to be calling the plays. He is I think he's a much better play caller. Well, definitely than Hugh Jackson or what the Cleveland Browns have had to deal with the last couple of years. That'll help. I mean, plain and simple.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go rapid round with these remaining offensive coordinator hires. I want to get your take. Eric Bieniemy promoted from the running backs coach to the offensive coordinator position in Kansas City with Matt Nagy leaving.
I trust Andy Reid.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
It's the Andy Reid coaching tree, and
you have the fallback of if he's not what they want, Reid could just call plays again.
Yeah, well, I imagine that Reid will call the plays, but what I like is that it's the running back coach, and maybe someone can remind Andy Reid, hey, you have a great running back. Let's make sure that he gets some touches.
All Kareem Hunt owners say, amen.
It's not just Kareem Hunt. It's Jamal Charles was there too, and someone needed to remind Andy, you have Jamal Charles. Don't forget.
All right, Miami, Dwell Laganes. This is the one. This is the head scratcher of all head scratchers.
So he knew Adam Gase from when he was the quarterback's coach when Adam Gase was the head coach in Chicago.
Yep.
And that's how he got hired.
That's all there is, folks.
I mean, is it worse than what they had last year? I don't know. I mean, I don't think they had a really great offensive coordinator there. So
Chicago was 30th in yards, 29th in points. Yeah.
It's a lateral.
So at least
move.
there's no overt reason to be optimistic about this hire.
Unlike with John DeFilippo in Minnesota.
Yeah, let's talk about that hire. You're excited.
I am. I think he is excellent. Now, Minnesota's offense was already great. Minnesota's a defensive-minded team, so I expect this to be kind of lateral. We're going to see more of the same from Minnesota next year. It's not a step up because they don't want to step their offense up and become an offensive first team, but I really think John DeFilippo is a great football mind, and he's going to succeed. He's such a grinder.
All right. Yeah, he was the Eagles quarterback coach last year. Big impact on Carson Wentz. Jeremy Bates, new offensive coordinator for the New York Jets.
Yeah, and he was their quarterback coach. He was actually out of football from 2013 to 2016. Just
sabbatical.
Just
hiatus.
Just taking some time off.
Powering up.
Now, to Jeremy Bates' credit, we saw Josh McCown, because he was the quarterback coach for the Jets. We saw Josh McCown playing the best football of his career aside from those magical games with the Chicago Bears. So maybe there's something there. There are some Jets fans who are in the Foot Clan who keep telling me that Jeremy Bates is the reason that Kirk Cousins will be coming to New York. So we shall see.
All right. Not inspiring to me. Brian Schottenheimer hired as the offensive coordinator in Seattle. Darrell Bevell fired. Darrell Bevell's been interviewed several places for a role on an offense, was well respected. Brian Schottenheimer is responsible for the butt fumble? We got the butt fumble in his resume?
Yeah.
If you're I know. But let's talk about Brian Schottenheimer. He ran the ball, and they ran the ball a lot in New York. This was a product of Rex Ryan's type of offense, though. Do we really believe Brian Schottenheimer is the man to make Russell Wilson all that he can be?
No.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
No, I mean I just don't think he's been around a long time. And I realize he's been on more of the defensive-oriented teams, like you said with the Jets. But he's been around a long time. He has never once had a team with top 10 yards on offense as an offensive coordinator. We're talking basically a decade of offensive coordinating, and not one time has he just been basically
in yards. Am I misreading that they were 5th and 6th on the Jets in 2009 and 2010?
You are misreading, I believe. Oh. 2009 and 2010, they were 20th and 11th.
That's what I have too, Mike.
Oh, okay.
That was the differential number.
Yeah.
All right, and then Todd Haley leaving to Cleveland, you get Randy Fichtner. Randy Fichtner, the new offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh.
This is what I wanted Atlanta to do when Kyle Shanahan left. Take their quarterback coach.
Big Ben is the new offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh.
Right. Their offense was already great. Atlanta was. So don't change things. Just promote the quarterback's coach. Keep it going. That's what Pittsburgh has done. I think it's the best move they could make.
When he's an offensive mind, he was the OC for Memphis from 2001 to 2006, and he brought a really high-flying, high-powered, very fast-moving offense to that team.
You want a
Changed
bright
a lot
mind
of things for college, so I like this move.
And according to some of the reporters, what happened is he came in and he was wanting to go more no huddle, faster tempo, and it took about half the season before he got his way last year with Pittsburgh, and you saw the struggles early with Big Ben. So there's plenty of reasons to hope. That being said, when you lose your offensive coordinator, a great offensive mind with Todd Haley, I don't think that's going to help your team.
Yeah, I think this is one of those cases, though, where I do lean on the side of you're going to get more of the same from that offense. They're going to be just fine.
Yeah, hopefully.
Maturation of Juju and such. All right, hey, that is it for the Coaching Carousel episode. Thank you for joining us. And a reminder, if you're looking for more ways to engage in a little friendly competition, try captaining some of the greatest warships of World War II and World of Warships, the free-to-play historical online combat game from Wargaming. Download World of Warships for free today at commandwarships.com to begin your naval adventure. Make sure you use that promo code FOOTBALLERS18 in all caps when you download to get a bunch of bonus content courtesy of the show, and that includes a free premium ship, the famous Aurora Cruiser, and a pile of in-game currency. Just download World of Warships today at commandwarships.com and start playing right now. Guys, I'm very excited for Thursday and the Thursday episode. It's going to be a lot of fun. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, okay.
You don't get anything else.
All right, and
thanks for joining us.
And check out draft.com/ballers if you want to play some way too early best ball because it's super duper fun.
Way perfectly early.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.